Okay, we're going to do a similar thing as yesterday. We're going to run through the sessions. Somebody from the session will come up, say maybe a little bit about what happened, if we solved any of those fundamental problems, and maybe next steps or where to collaborate moving forward. Like yesterday, if you think you're the person who's supposed to do that, you are. So just come up. Let us go with, I'm going to start from the right on my schedule and start with Portal. So we got Portal Network Primer and Execution Client Q&A.
Told some people about how it's all put together, talked a little bit about talked with some of the execution teams on sort of like the idea between whether or not their users are the network or users, and there's sort of a bit of a spread. I don't know how much else there is to say there. We just like went into relatively some breadth and depth of how it all gets put together.
And there were a couple sessions with the execution.
We talked then a little. I should just do all right there. Yeah. We talked a little bit later about client diversity. I made a suggestion that like if we actually care about client diversity, then we may need to do some like actual changes to how clients are being built or changes at the networking level, things like that. Again, some like fun little conversations with all the different client teams on kind of how, right, what are you building your client for? What's the roadmap? Who are your users? Is it network? Is it users? What's the plan? Did a deep dive at the end of the day on specifically how the Portal network handles state, which is like the most complicated thing that we had to do, and it's complicated. Oh, and Geth promised that they're going to solve all of our problems for us.
Thank you. In that same room, we had a bunch of 4 stuff going on. I think I mispronounced that. So we had the EIP 4.4's prototype. Does anybody want to go over how that session went?
Right, so the first one was a prototype of stuff. Where's Henry? Is he in here? Hello, Henry. Anyway, Henry DF, I mentioned him earlier. He's here somewhere. He was working on a prototype of some of the data formatting and import and export from Geth. So he gave that demo. It was super cool. And then like a recurring theme through this, like we had different people come to each session, and it was just kind of like answering a bunch of just like general questions about like how the whole thing would work. That was like a recurring theme through the day of just like what are kind of the basics of like how is this history structured, who holds it. But either way, so we had some of that. Yes, I should mention this. So Jacek was there. Jacek's somewhere. I swear these people are, he's over there. So he's been working on this idea of era files at the consensus layer, and basically is one of these structures. So that's kind of what we segued into after the demo was like, how would you actually structure these things, the history? And if you want to hear more, talk to him about that. But basically, there's a nice way to write the data down, and there's like a proof scheme built in with SZ and all sorts of fun stuff. So that was the first session. Next session was a little more general because it was more, again, this like probably thorniest question of like, how is the history actually, provisioned? How is it made available? And there aren't any great answers. We were hopeful the Portal network could be helpful here. I gave like a sampling of possible answers this morning. I don't know if we made any great progress on that front in terms of like new information, but we'll keep working on it. And then we had the Portal network session, and I think the takeaway from that was essentially that the network isn't really designed to serve this like archival use case, but it could be great for like sort of point queries, right? If you need like the 10 millionth block, Portal could do that. And then we just had like a recap session at the end of like a rollout plan. Basically, we're going to reach out to various institutions and actually build out more of the infrastructure. And I think if, essentially want to prove out this thing working. And then from there, go to client teams and be like, hey, this is time. We're ready to go and make it happen. That was that.
Cool. We spent the day working on some consensus stuff. Does anybody want to give us a recap? Barnabas, do you want to talk about the PBS session?
I'll only do PBS, I think, but that was a very nice session. We started discussing kind of a design space of a mechanism. So as I explained this morning, there's a lot of moving parts. You have the proposers, you have the builders, you have the attesters. You need to find the best way to kind of coordinate everyone around this market. One of the main constraints that we discussed is this idea of time buying, that people usually have an incentive to do things late rather than soon, because then they can accumulate more MEV or more transactions in their block. Then we discussed the fork choice. To make PBS work, we need a way to keep people accountable. So for instance, if they don't do their job, we need a way to say, I haven't seen their block on time. And for the fork choice that works for this is called block slot, but it does introduce latency constraints that could be solved with this back-off scheme. And we also discuss how this meshes with current fork choice constraints such as proposer boost. Then we discuss CR list, which is a way to avoid censorship when you have a single builder on the market. And later, Vitalik also commented that you don't have to commit to a hash of the execution block. You could commit to just a bid amount and the index of the builder, and that might give you a more flexible construction. That's it for PBS.
Next, we spent some time on the single slot finality requirements. Does anybody want to get a recap on that? I was there. We drove Vitalik, as we had a discussion around the requirements, not quite that. We went over and discussed, it's not there, don't look over there. Discuss kind of the requirements that we want to see from any sort of like single slot finality, or, you know, it's really any sort of accountable safety accumulation on a per slot level, how the protocol might evolve into there, what things that from the current protocol that we really want to make sure we preserve, and new things that we want to get there. We ended up kind of like throwing out all the fun stuff, like, you know, make it ZK friendly, whatever that means in that context. And I think we're like a bit more on the same page. I think that one problem we've had in just working on proof of stake consensus in Ethereum in general is like we have all these kind of like abstract, nice things to have that are all in our heads, but actually getting them down in kind of a systematic way on paper is hard. So that was good. And then that transitioned into the Stanford group, who joined us here and who's been doing a lot of work on Ethereum proof of stake consensus and things, showed us a model that they've been working on, which might give some of the properties that we're looking for here, which, you know, uses some sort of black box BFT consensus, and then some sort of oracle about how many people are online. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this. To dynamically adjust the finality threshold, knowing that there are trade-offs when you do so. Very interesting stuff. We're excited to continue to collaborate on that. I then was not in the next session. If anybody wants to talk about fork choice stuff, I texted you from the other room, though. It's all solved. It's no problem.
Yeah, I had a bit of the unfortunate job to basically tell about the latest fork choice related issues that we've come across, and also talk about some of the mitigations. So basically, yeah, there's this thing called ex ante reorgs, where you release, rather than doing a reorg where you see a block and you reorg it out. The idea is basically you, by like strategically timing your messages, you get to reorg out future blocks. And the way we're mitigating it is basically giving the proposer some boost that basically allows, I mean, I don't want to go into the specifics of the attack now, but basically talked about a bunch of problems, ex ante reorg, balancing, basically this idea of splitting committees into different views, and this proposer boost, which is implemented and live on some of the clients already, is basically giving the proposer some power to kind of sway, like make everyone converge on one chain. And then we kind of concluded that we need to tune this boost parameter, because there are some kind of side effects to this boosting, because the boost can also be abused by an adversary. And then we talked about some kind of like more forward-looking fork choice changes, which we refer to as proposer view merge. It's this idea of, rather than giving the proposer actual fork choice weight and like kind of philosophically kind of defeating the purpose of democratizing the power to a committee of thousands of validators, we only give the proposer kind of a way of adding information, and by adding this information, kind of syncing everyone up. Specifics don't make sense to recap here, but yeah, basically a bunch of problems and hopefully a bunch of solutions.
Right, so Peter killed stateless, that's it. No. So we started with some explanation with about vertical trees, how stuff works. We had a couple discussions how to interact with stateless clients. Jold was, like, we had a conversation with Jold about including the proof in the transaction. We decided against that. So anything else from that? Ansgar was also questioning some aspects. We like the complexities. We decided, we were looking for why we were doing something basically, and it's basically a performance issue. And then there was Andrew. Are you here? Because there was the stateless database, Verkle database. Okay, so Andrew was explaining how Erigan do their database scheme and how it would evolve. So we discussed how we could implement things, and there's a couple questions to be answered, some follow-ups. And then there was the, what we did, no, that was not the sync. Yes, that was the sync. So the question, can we do a Verkle stateless sync? I think it's clear we don't. We can do the snap sync. I mean, we use the snap sync. That was the decision. And then there's the transition. That was the biggest discussion. So we identified some issues. Overlay tree definitely doesn't work, and we identified a new solution that we need to look into. So basically, someone does the conversion, or multiple people, like we stop the state, like we freeze the state at some point, and we log every difference between that state and the current state, and people will voluntarily convert this to a Verkle tree, and then that Verkle tree gets a sync, and then all the logs, all the differences get applied until you reach a Verkle tree. This is the current model we want to work on, and there's some investigations to be done. Do you guys want to add something? People were in the session? No? You should see the faces I'm getting. So I think that was it. Thanks.
Cool. There was some people working on testing and shadow forking. Any takeaways from there?
Yeah, so we did the shadow fork this morning, girly shadow fork number 4. It went great. There were some issues with nodes running out of memory. Some BISU nodes also left the network after the transition, but it looked pretty good. Then we did a session on merge testing tools, where we discussed all the tools that the execution layer has, all the tools that the consensus layer clients have to do like investigation of issues on the respective chains. And we discussed some of the tools that we would like to have, that we want to build, some of the documentation that we want to write for the other clients or the other teams to be able to debug issues, and also to write down things that other people could help us with. So if for example Gath finds a bug or stumbles upon something with a client combination, what data do we have to like collect for Nimbus or Lighthouse to investigate these issues? So that session was pretty productive. And then we did a session on merge testing, where we discussed some of the strategies that we currently use, fuzzing, these shadow forks, static test cases and stuff like this, and also the things that we want to use, want to do, and yeah, and then we had, I hope there's no cameras running. We had a session on when merge, and damn, yeah. So yeah, we had a session on when merge and timelines. The merge is coming.
And we'll keep talking about it a bunch this week. Cool? Yeah, cool. Great. Thank you. I had a lot of fun the past couple days. Really appreciate it. I texted, if you're in that Telegram group, we do have some like hack space available throughout the week for this group to continue to collaborate, to work on testing the merge, or really kind of just have a space that you can go and be in. I think there'll be generally coffee and snacks available. It's a few different locations depending on the day, so just look at that text that's in there. We are having a party at 6 in 1 hour in this building right here named the Adam Building, A''DAM, in the loft space. It's upstairs. There's lots of food, lots of beverage, so I don't think you need to grab dinner before. And that's all I have. Tim? Okay, thank you. This was awesome. Really, really appreciate it. Oh, and huge shout out to the volunteers, huge shout out to the audiovisual company, huge shout out to the people working, making sure we had food and everything. This was awesome. It was awesome. We've been in some like janky situations before, and this was not one of them.
Round of applause for Danny and Tim for making this happen.